Что в конце концов исчезло, и никто этого не заметил? 3D-телевизоры. От них только башня болела. Я бы не сказал, что они прям бесследно исчезли. Прикол в том, что они даже не стали популярными. Мы не заметили, как рабочий график с 9 до 5 превратился с 8 до 5. А в некоторых компаниях и вовсе с 8 до 6. Обертка из фольги на шоколадных батончиках. Можно было вынуть батончик Херши из обертки, съесть его, а затем аккуратно вставить фольгированную обертку обратно в упаковку, чтобы поугарать над братом. Куда-то пропала наша потребность знать, кто наши соседи. Недавно слушал подкаст на тему человеческого общения, и ведущий сказал, что интернет постепенно сделал возможным жизнь, при которой тебе не обязательно знать, кто живет с тобой по соседству. Раньше мы общались с людьми, живущими с нами на одной улице, ходили вместе ужинать, отмечали дни рождения и так далее. Теперь наступило время, что нам даже не нужно друг с другом знакомиться. Сейчас мы узнаем друг друга только когда у нас возникают какие-то жалобы. Светлячки. Я живу в сельской местности, и раньше в теплую летнюю ночь можно было увидеть сотни светлячков. Теперь я радуюсь, если вижу хотя бы одного. Я говорил об этом другим людям, живущим со мной по соседству, и они лишь отвечали: «Ха, да, ты прав». Я биолог, и мы относим светлячков к категории биоиндикаторов. То есть, если где-то их много, это говорит о качестве окружающей среды в этом районе. Они обычно процветают там, где меньше светового загрязнения, поскольку биолюминесценция – это их основной способ коммуникации. Включите в уравнение искусственный свет, и вы нарушите их способ взаимодействия. Я так понимаю, что это как минимум частично связано с тем, что мы всюду применяем пестициды. В большинстве районов США каждый рандомный куст обрабатывается тоннами пестицидов. В детстве я только так собирал жуков, а теперь они все исчезли. А все потому, что, пытаясь остановить одного или двух вредителей, мы убиваем вообще всех насекомых. Численность насекомых во всем мире сократилась на 70%. У нас большие проблемы.
И прежде чем продолжить, минутка полезной информации, не перематывайте. Дорогие подписчики, вы хотите стильно и недорого одеваться? Тогда рекомендую вам годный магазин кроссовок и одежды hustle.rf. Ребята продают реплику известных брендов, которая по качеству и материалам не отличается от оригинала. В наличии более 5000 кроссовок и одежды по адекватным ценам. Редкие и эксклюзивные модели, которые вы сейчас нигде не купите, либо потратите в 3 раза больше. У хаслов на сайте только реальные отзывы покупателей. И что очень важно, у них есть бесплатная доставка и оплата при получении. Если товар не подошел, просто возвращайте обратно. Для наших подписчиков хаслы предоставили промокод UPVOT, который дает скидку 30% на все товары. Не переплачивайте и тратьте деньги с умом, ссылочка в описании. Продолжаем.
Раньше в домах было много семейных фотографий. Не то чтобы они совсем исчезли, но просто раньше дома ими были буквально завешаны. Сейчас я замечаю их лишь в домах, где живут пожилые люди. Я подарил жене цифровую фоторамку, которую мы поставили в гостиной. В ней прокручиваются все наши семейные фотографии, в основном с отпуска или каких-то путешествий. У нас есть еще одна рамка в спальне, в которой закачаны наши свадебные фотографии и фотографии с медового месяца. 10 из 10. Крутейшее вложение. Они хранят так много счастливых воспоминаний и, по крайней мере, раз в день вызывают улыбку на лице. Когда мы устраиваем дома вечеринку, мы специально меняем наборы фотографий на этих рамках. Включаем в них всех, кто пришел в гости. Забавно посмотреть, заметят ли они это или нет. Причем мы добавляем в рамки и совершенно новые фотографии, сделанные на этой же вечеринке. Я считаю, это довольно милая традиция. А еще бывает весело, когда гости понимают, что фотография в рамке сделана всего 5 минут назад. Понятие позора в политике. Я про то, что если раньше политиков ловили на взятках, то они с позором уходили со своих постов. Просто они поняли, что единственная причина, почему они уходили, заключалась в том, что они сами решали уйти. Как только политики осознали, что на самом деле невероятно трудно кому-то заставить их покинуть свой пост, они изменили тактику и стали тупо игнорировать проблему и ждать, пока фокус новостей не направится на что-либо другое. Вот вам пример. В Северной Ирландии в связи со скандалом наш первый министр оказалась под следствием. Из-за плохо построенной программы стимулирования энергопотребления правительство потеряло 500 миллионов фунтов стерлингов, полученных от налогоплательщиков. Обвинение склонялось к двум вариантам. Либо это была преступная халатность с ее стороны, либо реальное умышленное преступление. Следствие решило, что это был первый вариант. Попросту огромная профессиональная некомпетентность. Ушла ли она с поста? Нет, она просто замолкла на время, отказалась признаваться в содеянном и вела себя так, будто все это какая-то мелочь. Люди, отвечающие на звонки в компаниях. По работе мне ежедневно приходится звонить в офисы врачей, и у одного из таких есть вступительное сообщение. Я засекал время, длиной почти 4 минуты. В нем говорится про часы работы, адрес с подробным описанием, как туда добраться, ограничения ковид и правила для новых пациентов. Приходится все это прослушать, прежде чем появится возможность нажать на нужную кнопку. Как же меня это бесит! Бесит! Общая поп-культура, по крайней мере в США. Как минимум до 80-х годов большинство людей смотрели одни и те же телепередачи, одни и те же фильмы, слушали одну и ту же музыку, цитировали одни и те же рекламные слоганы, джинглы, покупались на одни и те же фишки. Я не знаю, когда именно это произошло, но сейчас мы все разделены на очень специфические субкультуры. Это явно произошло с появлением интернета. С того момента по всему миру, не только в США, началось разделение людей на субкультуры. Ну, по крайней мере, с появлением интернета стало очень заметно, что это происходит, начинает происходить. Не то чтобы я скучаю по старым временам, но определенная ностальгия в этом есть. Я про то, когда ты садился перед телевизором в определенное время, потому что знал, что сейчас будут показывать новую серию твоего любимого сериала. И если ты ее пропустишь, то ты ее реально пропустишь. И на следующий день не сможешь ни с кем ее обсудить. Мне нравится, что сейчас я могу смотреть сериалы на стриминговых платформах, когда захочу. Но пропала эта традиция обсуждения на следующий день. Странно, что никто про это еще не написал. Рональд Макдональд. Помните старого клоуна, который часто появлялся в рекламе и заведениях Макдональдс? Его больше нет. Его убрали, когда люди стали массово устраивать пранки с криповыми клоунами. Мои любимые нелегальные сайты, на которых можно было бесплатно смотреть фильмы и сериалы. Да просто загугли онлайн Movies 2023, но замени слово movies на его перевод на другой язык, желательно восточноевропейский. И вруби отблок. Либо используй Яндекс вместо Гугла. Им вообще похер, ты на первой же странице найдешь нужный тебе фильм. Я больше не вижу стаи бабочек-монархов. Это связано с увеличением количества пестицидов и абсолютной нехваткой растений, которыми бабочки питаются во время своих путешествий. Если посадить сад, благоприятный для бабочек-монархов, то, скорее всего, они на пути своей миграции сделают остановку в этом саду, потому что для них это жизненно необходимо. Еще стоит отметить, что они откладывают свои яйца на растениях семейства молочайных. Это единственные растения, которые питают и выращивают их личинок и куколок. А по мере развития городов и сельского хозяйства большая часть молочайных растений исчезла. Посадив несколько садов для бабочек-монархов, да даже в целом сад для всех насекомых и пылителей, а также обеспечив их источником воды, к примеру, организовав небольшой фонтанчик, пруд или что-то в этом роде, вы действительно сможете помочь всем опылителям, и в том числе бабочкам-монархам. Я живу в Миннесоте, и у нас и так время от времени встречаются монархи, но когда мы высаживаем цветы, которыми они питаются, то их становится в несколько раз больше. Люди перестали падать в обморок в моменты каких-то неожиданностей, перестали носить с собой нашатырный спирт на такие случаи. Кажется, что все осталось где-то в 19 веке. Давайте вернем все назад, будем носить корсеты и нацеплять на себя огромное количество слоев одежды, выкинем кондиционеры, будем снова гасить зубную боль кокосом и гречкой, опять будем красить одежду и стены мышьяком. Вот и глянем, как часто мы будем падать в обморок. Возможность купить какой-то программный софт и так далее, без необходимости брать гребаную ежемесячную подписку на все. Я вот только что перестал быть пользователем Adobe, потому что они увеличили стоимость моей ежемесячной подписки с 20 до 60 долларов. Это полный писец. Плазменные телевизоры. Моя плазма сдохла после того, как во время пандемии мы устроили марафон сериалов. Мастерские по ремонту телевизоров тоже исчезли, если уж на то пошло. Раньше была каморка, в которой стоял челик за прилавком, а вокруг него всюду болтались электронные провода и прочее. Он давал тебе талончик, и тебе неделю или две приходилось слушать радио. Конфиденциальность нашей повседневной жизни. Я живу в страхе, что однажды меня случайно заснимут, когда я что-то делаю, и видео завирусится. Дело Гислейн Максвелл. На мой взгляд, это какая-то дичь. Сначала все вокруг орали «спасите детей», а потом внезапно всем стало наплевать. Она была осуждена и отправлена в тюрьму на 20 лет за многочисленные обвинения в сводничестве с участием несовершеннолетних. Сейчас идет новый судебный процесс, связанный с ее лжесвидетельством по делу Эпштейна, который только добавит ей срок. Спиннеры. Загляни в любой супермаркет или на случайную заправку вдоль шоссе. Там они все еще валяются в одиноком углу, где продается всякая всячина по типу детских игрушек и дешевых зарядных устройств для мобил. Хорошее соотношение цены и качества в ресторанах. Во время пандемии все рестораны незаметно уменьшили размеры порций, а потом их не восстановили. Noodles & Company, наряду с многими другими заведениями, делают в своей рекламе акцент на больших порциях, как до пандемии. Но даже когда вы едите в самом заведении, вам подают порцию, которую раньше делали на вынос. И все это по более высокой цене. Это так называемая сакрафляция. Чтобы скрыть повышение цен и не поднимать их напрямую, компании попросту продают меньше товара по той же цене. «Игра престолов» куда-то пропала. Никто больше не говорит об этом сериале. Я никогда не смотрел его, но я постоянно слышу слышал, Игра престолов то, Игра престолов все. И так вплоть до выхода последнего сезона. Тем не менее, люди и по сей день любят и обожают такие сериалы, как «Во все тяжкие», «Друзья», «Сопрано» и так далее. Неужели «Игра престолов» настолько разочаровала зрителей? Последние несколько сезонов оставили после себя неприятное послевкусие. Людям тяжело оглядываться на него с любовью, как на все остальные сериалы, которые ты перечислил. Долгий стаж работы в одном месте – это важный момент, о котором, кажется, никто не упомянул. Такое понятие, как долгая продолжительность работы в одном месте, в значительной степени сошло на нет. Раньше люди устраивались на работу и, проработав там десятилетия, получали разные плюшки, потому что являлись опытными сотрудниками, более высокую зарплату и лучшие привилегии. Может быть, это потому, что я работаю в сфере развлечений, но я чувствую, что эта тема сошла на нет. То есть человек может замечательным образом выполнять свою работу, но через 5+ лет работодатель начинает задумываться, не лучше ли ему было бы найти более молодого кандидата на эту должность, которому он смог бы платить меньше. Я понимаю, что если вы хотите продвинуться по карьерной лестнице выше, то вам нужно выкладываться на полную и работать превосходно, по крайней мере у работодателя такие ожидания. Но 30+ лет показывать такой невероятный уровень — это тяжело. Некоторые годы будут успешными, некоторые чуть менее удачными. И если работодатель больше не желает быть лояльным к своим сотрудникам, то, скорее всего, хорошего работника в какой-то момент уволят или отпустят. Мне кажется, что в последние десятилетия подобный подход вынудил многих людей сменить профессию, хотя раньше они бы этого не сделали. Может ли кто-нибудь успешно продвигаться по карьерной лестнице на любой работе без необходимости переходить в другую компанию ради повышения? Выходит так, что работодатели прерывают движение вверх своих сотрудников, пока ищут новых работников на более высокие должности. Плюс ко всему, их опытные сотрудники им надоедают. Все это в значительной степени убило саму идею о том, что у человека в жизни может быть одна постоянная карьера в одном месте. Большое спасибо за просмотр. В комментариях под видео напишите, что в конце концов исчезло и никто этого не заметил. И не забудьте посмотреть наши другие ролики. Обнял. Пока.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.